reward me if I thank Him for whatever comes my way. Salema said, so I memorized these words. When Salema died, I said istirja, and said, O Allah, compensate me for my loss and give me what is better than it. I then thought about it and said, who is better than Abu Salema? When my iddah, the period of time before the widow or divorced woman can remarry, finished, Allah's messenger asked for permission to see me while I was dyeing a skin that I had. I washed my hands, gave him permission to enter, and handed him a pillow, and he sat on it. He then asked me for marriage. And when he finished his speech, I said, O Messenger of Allah, it is not because I do not want you, but I am very jealous, and I fear that you might experience some wrong mannerism from me, for which Allah would punish me. I am old, and I have children. He said, as for the jealousy that you mentioned, Allah the Exalted will remove it from you. As for your being old, as you mentioned, I have suffered what you have suffered. And for your having children, they are my children too. This is the ruh, this is the spirit of joining. And it pains me because oftentimes I see people marrying for green cards, I see people marrying for all kinds of reasons, but this is not the spirit because we haven't been taught. But this is the spirit that we go into this. She said, I have surrendered to Allah's messenger. Allah's messenger married her, and Salema said later, Allah compensated me with who is better than Abu Salema, Allah's messenger. So here was a test. He took her husband from her, and what did he bring her? She said the prayer that she'd been taught, that from Allah I came and to Allah I will return, and Allah gave her the messenger as a husband. If we believe that this is the way of Islam, because this is what Allah has promised, then that's what will happen. If we don't believe, then we actually are cutting off the hose ourselves. Not Allah, but we are.
But she left her husband and she married?
No, her husband died.
Oh, he died.
He died.
I thought maybe she did that. That was a bad thing to do.
Now I want to cover verse 158 because it's a little bit of a different context, so that you understand it, because we're going through this tafsir. Verily, As-Safa and Al-Marwa are of the symbols of Allah. So it is not a sin on him who performs Hajj or Umrah, pilgrimage of the house, to perform tawaf between them. And whoever does good voluntarily, then verily Allah is all recognizer, all knower. So you may say, what in the world does a verse like this arrive at the end of talking about dying in the cause of Islam, and then patience reappears, and then this verse comes in? And let's talk about what it means. Directions about Hajj and Umrah are being given at this place because the Kaaba had recently been made the Qibla, and naturally questions and problems connected with that had arisen. Prior to this verse, the Asbab al-Nuzul, the reason and occasion of this revelation, we know that there were 360 different idols surrounding the Kaaba. People were running around naked around the Kaaba. So now the Kaaba has been reestablished as the centrality of monotheism, the place that we circumambulate in celebration of the one God. But the people had to change, right? The people had to be re-educated as to what can happen there. The running between Safa and Marwa, the two hills near the Kaaba, was one of the rituals taught by Allah to Ibrahim a.s. in connection with hearts. Sorry, it's weak, I guess. But afterwards, when the people began to associate false gods, that's supposed to be F-A-L-S-E, false gods with Allah, they built temples on Safa and Marwa and dedicated these 22 idols, actually that should be two idols, Asif and Naila, and went around them and revered them or reverenced them. When the Arabs embraced Islam, a question arose whether running between Safa and Marwa was one of the original rituals of Hajj, whether this had been invented by the worshippers of false gods, and whether they should not be guilty of practicing shirk by running between the two hills. And that's the Asbab al-Nuzul about this. So imagine being in a community where you've seen people that have set up idols on Safa and Marwa, and the Kaaba is reclaimed, and you're told to make sa'i between Safa and Marwa, but people have been doing it with idols. So the people, it was a question. So Allah answered their question right here for them. A tradition related by Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, says that the people of Medina had an old aversion to running between Safa and Marwa even before they accepted Islam, for they were devotees of Manat and did not worship Asad and Naila. So these were various gods that were there. Therefore, when the Kaaba was made the Qibla, Allah removed their misunderstanding concerning the running between Safa and Marwa and told them that this ritual had really been connected with Hajj ever since the time of the Prophet Ibrahim a.s. It was not the invention of the ignorant people after him. So just to help you understand that one verse, it's a little out of what we typically see. What I'm going to do though is, Mason, I want you to get the setup for...
I need to upload it onto the thing.
Okay. Where we will pick up at the next class will be the meaning of verses 159 to 162. A very valuable lesson. Remember, we will not have class next Sunday because I will be at the United Church of Christ in the Villages. As many people as can come, it would be wonderful. We would love to have 15 or 20 Muslims in that church. I will be talking about love from the Islamic context. A rabbi will be talking about love from the Judaic context. A Christian minister. Each of us given 7 minutes. I'll be calling the adhan in that worship service so that they will be exposed to some things about Islam. I would love for you to come. Yes, sister.
What time is the event?
9:30 a.m.
On Sunday?
on Sunday.
I posted it to the group, and I did ask for people to respond that wanted to carpool, but nobody did. So I don't know if everybody's going alone or
I
what.
beg you, if there's any way you can make that sacrifice, particularly in this time. I would love for that church to see Muslims of all walks of life, the covered and the uncovered.
Oh, that's not an event that we can be late to, guys.
Just, you you don't go late to church. It's not accepted. But please, if you can, I haven't done this since 2007, but for that reason we're canceling the class. I love you all for the sake of Allah. I hope to see you there. If not, I will see you inshallah the following week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.